It's the early 20th century, and you have racial segregation in your country, but you need manpower. What do? Well, you simply just recruit the racial minority and treat them like that. But this was all about to change when the arrival of the 15th New York Regiment for the Home Guard came into play. The 15th New York Home Guard Regiment was not like any other regiment in the American force. It was all consisted of black Americans. And when the US entered World War I, they brought them along. So they were transported over to Europe, but they didn't receive combat training, and they were just given minor tasks to do, like digging trenches and providing supplies. They were obviously treated the same in France as they were back home. General John J. Pershing then said to the French, "We're giving you some reinforcements," and the French would take anything. They were that low on manpower. They needed them. So he sent the 15th New York Regiment, which was now the 369th Infantry Regiment. Numbers over 200 were only meant for draftees. This was obviously an insult to the Harlem Hellfighters because they were volunteers. So the French took in, I'm just going to call them the Harlem Hellfighters because it's so much easier. They took them in and then they dressed them up in French uniform, equipment, helmets, and even gave them French rifles and ammunition. Now, they still didn't see combat training, but they did see combat within their first weeks in the French military. Even during one of the most heroic battles of the 369th, which is the Battle of Henry Johnson. Henry Johnson and one of his comrades were in a dugout as sentries. They heard sniper fire, they were ducking and diving. So they lined up grenades and got ready for if there was a search party coming. All of a sudden, they heard wires clipping through barbed wire. And as so happens, they peeked over the edge of the dugout and they see a good 20-30 Germans there. But they don't just run, they don't surrender. They put up a fight. They start shooting Germans. But Johnson's comrade gets knocked out. Now, Henry Johnson himself is trying to work his rifle and throw grenades to push back the Germans. Now, he does do this, but unfortunately, he jams his rifle. Obviously, he was given an 8mm Berthier rifle by the French, but he had a 30-06 ammunition on him. So he loaded the 30-06 instead of the 8mm and jammed his gun. Even then, he did not stop. A German tried to take his comrade as a prisoner, but Johnson fought him off with the butt of his stock until it splintered. He had no rifle, no stock, no bayonet. What did he resort to? His bolo knife. Henry Johnson took a multitude of wounds, 21 of wounds, while killing 4 German soldiers. Now, the only reason the soldiers retreated was because they heard American and French reinforcement. This promoted Henry Johnson to the rank of sergeant and gave him France's highest award. The 369th would also participate in the Meuse-Argonne offensive, taking a vital town on the very first day, taking mass casualties, taking them from 700 soldiers down to 150. And in the weeks following, they also took another train station, which cost them more casualties. And it was only then that the French gave them leave. They had served for 191 days on the front line, more than any US regiment, and they had taken more casualties than the US regiment. But they never lost a foot of ground, never retreated, and never took any prisoners. Come 1919, when they finally returned to New York, their regimental band was not allowed to play to the transport ship. Oh yeah, also one thing I forgot to mention was the Americans had published a pamphlet to the French, which was Secrets About Black American Troops. And this basically discriminated them, saying they were alcoholic, they had a higher accusation of rape, they basically slandered them in every way possible. But when they came home, they were treated as heroes, along with all their white comrades. So that is it about the 369th Infantry Regiment, who the Germans then later called Hellfighters. So, let me know what you think about the HARLEM HELLFIGHTERS in the comments below. If you do not want to miss the end of this series, I suggest subscribing, because I have a very, very important video coming out at the end of this week. And thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time for the Meuse-Argonne Offensive.